This video is a part 2 of my keto diet experiment. I'm gonna link the previous video somewhere there-ish. It might be helpful to check that out before this one makes much sense. Here we're gonna go through the results and all the data I have gathered during the experiment. I'm gonna show you some apps I use and how I merge the data from those services to one master Google datasheet, from which I can then make conclusions and draw pretty graphs. Here's the basic weight trend. As you can see, I have lost about 3 kilos during the experiment. But because of all the data I have, we can dive a little deeper. Here you can see how my lean mass has developed over the same time. It has dropped sharply and then leveled off. This is mostly due to loss of liquids at the start. But the most interesting data is the loss of fat mass. At the start of the experiment, I had 16.4 kilos of fat mass in my body, and at the end I had about 15.78-ish. If we calculate that out, that means we have about 710 grams of fat loss within 2 weeks. Which means I have burned about 50 grams of fat per day, which turns into 1.5 kilos a month if extrapolated from here. It's quite healthy pace to lose weight. If we take a look at my blood pressure over the experiment, it has pretty much stayed constant. My diastolic blood pressure has gone up a bit, while my systolic blood pressure has gone down a tiny bit. But the data is so noisy that there's no much telling what it does mean. What I find interesting is that my pulse pressure has gone down, which is the systolic blood pressure minus the diastolic blood pressure, which basically tells you how hard your heart is working. If we take a look at my nutrition, we can see that I have burned roughly 2,700 calories per day, but I have only eaten 1,600 per day. So, with that idea, my body has gotten 1,100 calories from something, and that's probably fat. Here you can see my net calories over the experiment. I only have one day where I have eaten as much as I have expended, and during the rest of the days I have pretty much have about 1,000 calorie deficit. And I have been happy with that. I haven't been starving. That means my body has gotten it from somewhere. When we take a closer look what my diet consisted of, about 60-70% of my caloric intake has come from fat during the experiment. About 20% has come from protein, and rest have come from carbs. If we take the amount of carbs per day, 172, and we divide that with 4 calories per gram, we get that I have eaten about 43 grams of carbs per day, which is way too much for doing keto properly, but it has worked. I probably need to cut that in half to do an actual keto diet. I track my calories and nutrition content of food with this app called MyFitnessPal. It's quite handy, and once you get used to using it, it doesn't really add any strain to your daily living. I've been using it for years and I no longer even pay attention to it. As a fitness tracker, I'm using Fitbit Charge, which tracks my daily activity and some of my sleep data. It just tracks it automatically without me doing pretty much anything. Addition to this fitness tracker data, I track my sleep using this app called Sleep as Android. It is the best sleep tracker app that I have come across, and for that I use LG's old G-Watch R Android smartwatch with the heart rate monitor to gather more data. So as stupid as it sounds, I actually sleep with 2 watches. I use the diary function in the sleep tracker app to write down things that might have affected my sleep, like if I have had alcohol or I've done sports or I've gone to sauna or pretty much anything. And all these apps I sync into one giant master spreadsheet using service called IFTTT, or if then this that. So for example, if I make a new blood pressure measurement with my Withings blood pressure monitor, the IFTTT gets notified and syncs the data to large Google spreadsheet, which is then accumulated into this massive spreadsheet, which pretty much has all the information that I have gathered from last 1500 days that could affect my health somehow. And it is this data that I use to make the neat looking graphs in Google Data Studio. I can compare data based on the diary data. For example, if I've been sick, how does it affect things like my blood pressure and how much I've walked? You can combine any of the information with any of the information based by date. And if I have multiple measurements, for example for weight or blood pressure for the date, the average will be written down in the spreadsheet. This sounds like a lot of work, but it really isn't. It was a lot of work to build, but because of IFTTT, all of this is pretty much automatic. So I just have to get up from bed and step on the scale, and the computers do all the logging for me. I'm a huge electronics, health and a data nerd, and that's why I have graduated as an engineer and I majored in healthcare electronics. Playing with all these apps and data I have gathered is kinda my hobby. That pretty much sums up my experiment. Hope you have enjoyed the videos more than I have enjoyed the eggs during the experiment. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't, you know where to stick your thumb. Thanks for watching.